All right, so are you ready to dive deep? Because today we are tackling Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now.
Oh, I am so ready.
It's a book that's really started so many conversations about, finding inner peace and really being present.
It really has.
And we love a good philosophical debate.
Oh, absolutely.
So, you sent us this dialogue that examines Tolle's ideas through all these different lenses, like pragmatism, existentialism, Jungian psychology,
Wow.
CBT, even
That'd be
Stoicism.
good.
Yeah, it's like a philosophical battle royale all around this idea of now.
Well, what's so fascinating to me is how these different philosophies, sometimes they're like clashing head on with Tolle's thinking,
Right.
and then other times they kind of unexpectedly converge in these really interesting ways.
Yeah.
And it just shows how complex and nuanced this whole concept of living in the now really is.
Okay, so to kick things off, we start with Alara, and she's basically like Team Tolle all
Right.
the way. And she argues that it's not about ignoring the future, but about acting powerfully in the present, which is the only point of leverage we truly have to influence what's to come.
Hmm.
But does that really work? Can you really shape the future just by focusing on the present?
Well, she's tapping into Tolle's core message here, which is this idea that a lot of our suffering comes from dwelling on the past or, anxiously anticipating the future.
Right.
And so he's suggesting that the key to breaking free from that mental trap is to become fully present in the now.
Okay.
It's like, think about your mind, like a snow globe.
Yeah.
You shake it up and it's all these thoughts about the past and worries about the future just swirling around.
Right.
But presence is about letting the snow settle.
Okay.
So you can actually see clearly.
I like that. That's a good visual.
Yeah.
But then we have Marcus coming in with a double whammy of pragmatism and existentialism. And he's basically throwing down the gauntlet and saying, can focusing on the present actually make us less motivated to work towards a better future?
Right. And he even brings in Sartre,
Yeah.
who, believe that our future-oriented actions are really what give life meaning.
Okay.
So if we're constantly fixated on the now, how do we muster up, that long-term dedication to build a career or raise a family or even tackle something massive like climate change?
Yeah, these are huge, complex issues that require planning and sustained effort over time.
Exactly.
It's not like you can just be present and poof, climate crisis solved.
Right. It's a real tension there.
Yeah.
If we take Tolle's to the extreme, would we ever accomplish anything that takes time, effort, and planning?
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if there's some kind of middle ground there.
Well, luckily, Laura has a counter-argument. She uses this analogy of a craftsman who's totally absorbed in their work.
Okay.
And she argues that actually being present enhances, not diminishes the ability to act effectively.
Ah, the craftsman analogy. I love that one.
Yeah.
Because it really points to that state of flow that athletes and artists and even people who are just deeply engaged in their work often describe.
Yeah.
That feeling of, time kind of melting away and you're just totally in sync with what you're doing.
Yeah. Totally. I get that. It's like when I'm writing and the words are just flowing effortlessly.
Exactly.
But even then, I have an end goal in mind, right? I'm not just typing randomly. I'm trying to craft a story or a script or whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not about choosing between presence and future-oriented action,
Right.
but finding a way for them to kind of work together.
Okay. That makes sense. But now things get even more interesting because Annalise enters the chat and she's coming in with a critique from a Jungian perspective. And she's concerned about Tolle's whole idea of ego transcendence.
This is where it gets juicy.
Yeah. Can you break that down for us a little bit? Because I'm not sure everyone is up on their Jungian psychology.
Sure. So Jung believed that we need a healthy ego.
Okay.
Not an inflated one, but a well-integrated one.
Right.
And he thought that real growth comes from understanding and accepting, those shadow parts of ourselves.
Okay.
The stuff we tend to hide or deny. It's like an onion, You got to peel back those layers to get to the core.
So Jung was more about integrating those different parts of ourselves rather than trying to completely eliminate the ego.
Exactly. And that's where Annalise's concern with Tolle comes in.
Okay.
She worries that aiming for ego transcendence might actually prevent us from doing that work of becoming a whole person. She even suggests that it could be a form of spiritual bypassing.
Whoa, spiritual bypassing. That sounds kind of intense.
It is. It's like trying to cheat your way to enlightenment without doing the real inner work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So skipping over all the messy, challenging parts of self-discovery.
Exactly.
And just jumping straight to bliss.
Yeah. Annalise is arguing that Tolle's approach might encourage people to avoid confronting their shadow selves instead of facing them head on.
Interesting. But I bet Alara has something to say about that.
Oh, you know she does.
Okay, let's hear it.
So Alara argues that the ego, with its constant need for validation and comparison, is actually the root of suffering. And she believes that presence helps us connect with a deeper sense of self, one that's not bound by the ego's limitations.
Okay.
It's like, imagine an artist so absorbed in their creation that their sense of self kind of dissolves, and all that's left is that pure act of creation that's getting close to Tolle's idea of transcendence.
So like stepping outside the boundaries of your ego to experience something more expansive.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty intriguing. But I have to admit, it also makes me a little nervous.
I get that.
It's like, what if we lose ourselves completely?
It's a valid concern.
Yeah.
And it really gets to the heart of this whole debate.
Yeah.
Is transcending the ego about not annihilating it?
Right.
Or is it about relating to it in a different way?
Yeah.
Can we acknowledge our ego without being completely controlled by it? What do you think?
Honestly, I'm still wrestling with it. It's a lot to unpack. But before we get too lost in the world of ego transcendence, our dialogue takes another sharp turn and brings in David,
Okay.
who represents a rationalist and CBT perspective. And here's where the role of the thinking mind really takes center stage.
Yes, and this is where things could get really interesting.
Yeah.
How does Tolle's emphasis on quieting the mind fit with approaches like CBT,
Yeah.
which really rely heavily on thought to change those negative patterns and improve well-being?
All right, let's dive into that. So David, our rationalist friend, he's like raising an eyebrow at Tolle's kind of dismissive view of the thinking mind.
Yeah, and he makes some good points. Like, think about it. CBT is all about using conscious thought to identify and challenge those negative thought patterns that can really hold us back.
Right.
It's about using reason and logic to actually improve our well-being.
Okay.
And rationalism in general puts a huge emphasis on the intellect as our primary tool for navigating the world.
So basically to David and anyone coming from that rationalist perspective, dismissing the thinking mind seems like a pretty bad idea.
Yeah, he acknowledges that overthinking can definitely be a problem, but he really argues that devaluing thought altogether is a dangerous game.
Yeah.
It's like saying, hey, ignore this incredibly powerful tool that helps us solve problems and make decisions and understand the world around us.
Okay, but Alara jumps back in to defend Tolle,
Of course she does.
arguing that he's not against thinking, he's just warning us about the dangers of the uncontrolled mind.
Right.
That constant chatter that can keep us trapped in this loop of worry and negativity.
That's a crucial distinction. It's not about eliminating thought altogether.
Right.
It's about becoming more aware of our thoughts and then choosing which ones we actually want to engage with.
Okay.
Think about meditation.
Yeah.
You're not trying to stop thinking completely, but you are practicing observing your thoughts without getting totally swept away by them.
So it's like creating some space between ourselves and our thoughts.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. It reminds me of this time when I was super stressed about a work deadline.
Oh, yeah.
I just kept replaying all these worst case scenarios in my head. It wasn't until I kind of took a step back and just observed those thoughts, without judging them.
Right. That I was able to calm down and actually focus on getting the work done.
I love that. And that's where I think Tolle's approach and CBT can actually complement each other.
Okay.
Because CBT often involves these mindfulness techniques that help us do exactly that.
Right.
Observe our thoughts without getting hooked by them.
Okay. That's starting to bridge the gap for me.
Yeah.
But David still has a valid concern, right?
Yeah.
What about the power of actively challenging and changing those negative thoughts?
Yeah, that's a core principle of CBT.
Right.
It teaches us to use reason and logic to actually identify and challenge those negative thought patterns that can lead to anxiety and depression.
Right.
So it's not just about observing our thoughts.
Yeah.
It's about actively reshaping them.
So maybe we're looking at two sides of the same coin here. On the one hand, you have this peace that can come from quieting the mind and accepting what is.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you have this empowerment that comes from actively engaging with our thoughts and challenging the ones that aren't serving us. And that's the beauty of this philosophical exploration. It's not about picking a winner.
Right.
It's about holding these multiple perspectives in mind and seeing how they can inform and even challenge each other.
I love that. And speaking of brilliant minds, our dialogue takes another turn when Sophia, representing existentialism and Stoicism, steps into the ring.
This is going to be good.
And she's here to challenge this whole idea of inner peace as a primary goal.
Okay. So what's the existentialist and Stoic take on inner peace?
Well, existentialism, as you might know it, often emphasizes this inherent meaninglessness of existence.
Right.
It's like, hey, we're thrown into this world without a predetermined purpose, so it's up to us to create our own meaning.
I like that.
So from that perspective, simply achieving inner peace wouldn't be enough.
Right.
There's got to be more to it than that.
Exactly. Sophia argues that real meaning often comes from struggle,
Okay.
from grappling with the absurdities of life and making choices in the face of uncertainty.
Right.
It's about embracing that full spectrum of human experience,
Yeah.
not just the peaceful parts.
I resonate with that. It's like saying, hey, life's messy, challenging, and sometimes downright heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But that's okay. It's all part of the journey.
And Stoicism, while valuing tranquility, also emphasizes virtue and duty and resilience in the face of adversity.
Oh.
It's about finding peace within ourselves,
Right.
even when the world around us feels chaotic and unpredictable.
So it's not about escaping struggle, but finding a way to navigate it with grace and strength.
Exactly.
But how does that square with Tolle's emphasis on, finding liberation from suffering through presence?
That is the million-dollar question, right? And Alara suggests that inner peace isn't about disconnecting from reality or pretending that everything is sunshine and rainbows.
Oh, okay.
It's about finding a deeper ground of being,
Okay.
a place of stillness within ourselves,
Yeah.
from which we can then engage with the world more effectively.
So maybe it's about finding that inner peace amidst the chaos, not in spite of it.
Exactly. It's about cultivating a sense of presence and awareness that allows us to face life's challenges with more clarity and compassion and resilience.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, just maybe, that kind of inner peace can actually enhance our capacity for meaningful action in the world.
I like that. It's like saying, hey, I can be at peace with myself even while I'm fighting for a cause I believe in or working towards a better future.
Now, Sophia, being a true existentialist, pushes back a bit here.
Okay.
She reminds us that existentialism doesn't shy away from confronting those darker, more difficult aspects of existence. Angst, despair, the awareness of our own mortality. Like, these are all part of what it means to be human.
Yeah.
And she suggests that trying to transcend these emotions entirely might be missing the point.
It's like she's saying, hey, don't try to bypass the hard stuff.
Right.
Lean into it. Embrace that full spectrum of human experience.
Right. And Stoicism kind of echoes this sentiment, and teaching us to find tranquility amidst the chaos, not by pretending that the chaos doesn't exist, but by learning to respond to it with virtue and resilience.
So are inner peace and meaningful struggle ultimately incompatible? Can we truly embrace both?
That's the big question that hangs in the air as this part of the dialogue comes to a close.
Right.
But Alara leaves us with something to ponder. Maybe it's about the kind of peace we're seeking. Maybe Tolle's concept of presence isn't about blissful ignorance or detachment,
Right.
but about cultivating a deeper level of awareness and acceptance
Yeah.
that allows us to face life's challenges with greater equanimity.
That's an interesting thought. So maybe it's not about achieving some static state of perfect peace,
Right.
but about finding a way to be present and grounded even in the midst of difficulty and uncertainty.
Exactly. It's about developing an inner strength and resilience that allows us to kind of weather the storms of life without losing our center.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these different perspectives can actually work together rather than being mutually exclusive.
And that's what makes this exploration so fascinating.
Yeah.
We're not trying to find a single right answer. We're kind of weaving together these different threads of wisdom to create this richer, more nuanced understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
It's like we're piecing together a philosophical jigsaw puzzle.
Yes.
With each perspective offering a unique piece of the bigger picture.
Exactly. And speaking of putting the pieces together, this dialogue ends with this really thought-provoking question.
Okay.
If you could sit down with Eckhart Tolle and all these philosophers that we've been discussing,
Yeah.
what one question would you ask them?
Ooh, that's a good one. It really makes you stop and think about everything we've covered so far. But before our listeners get too lost in thought, I have one final twist to throw into the mix.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Hit me with it.
How might this concept of presence inform our understanding of and response to all the crazy things that are happening in the world right now?
Oh, wow.
I mean, think about it. We're bombarded with news and social media and political debates, not to mention our own anxieties about the future.
Right.
It's so easy to feel overwhelmed and just swept away by it all.
That's so true. It's like
Yeah.
we're constantly being pulled in a million different directions.
Yeah.
But maybe presence can offer a way to like step back from the chaos,
Okay.
to create some space for ourselves amidst the storm,
Yeah.
and to respond to events with more clarity, compassion, and wisdom.
It's like finding that eye of the hurricane, that
That's
calm center amidst all the swirling winds.
exactly
And it's not about ignoring what's happening around
right.
us, but about approaching it from a more grounded and centered place.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe that shift in perspective can even ripple outwards,
Yeah.
influencing the way we interact with others and contribute to creating a more peaceful and just world.
Hmm.
It's a pretty powerful idea to consider.
It really is. So to our listeners, we encourage you to keep exploring Tolle's work and all the philosophical ideas we've discussed.
Both in this very moment and as you move into the future.
That's all for this part of our deep dive, folks, but don't go anywhere. We've got more to explore. So, as we've been talking about all these different philosophical takes on Tolle's work, I keep coming back to this idea of balance.
Balance.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Well, it just seems like, so much of this discussion hinges on finding that sweet spot between, seemingly opposing forces like presence and action, ego transcendence and integration, quieting the mind and engaging with thought, embracing inner peace, and confronting life's
It
challenges.
really is like this delicate dance, isn't it? Trying to
Yeah.
find that equilibrium where these contradictory ideas can not only coexist, but actually complement each other.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole exploration so fascinating. It's not about picking a side,
Right.
but about recognizing the value and importance of both.
Mm.
It's not either, it's both hand.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. Maybe the real wisdom lies in embracing that paradox, in holding those seemingly opposite truths simultaneously.
Totally. It reminds me of that famous quote by F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Oh, yeah.
The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposed ideas in mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function.
I love that one.
It really applies here, doesn't it?
It does.
Because if we can hold both the power of now and the necessity of future planning, both the need for a healthy ego and the possibility of transcending its limitations, well, maybe that's where the real magic happens.
Absolutely. It's like we're expanding our capacity to halt complexity,
Right.
to see the world and ourselves in a more nuanced and holistic way.
It reminds me of something Alara said in the dialogue about how presence isn't about detachment from the world,
Yeah.
but about deeper engagement.
Yes. That's a key point, I think, that often gets lost in these
Mhm.
conversations about presence. It's not about retreating into a cave and meditating 24/7.
Right.
It's about cultivating this sense of grounded awareness that allows us to show up more fully in our lives,
Yeah.
connect with others more authentically, and even tackle the world's problems with more clarity and compassion.
So maybe it's not about escaping the messiness of life, but about finding a way to be present and engaged right in the thick of it.
Precisely. And that's where I think Tolle's work and these other philosophical perspectives can really work together beautifully.
Yeah.
We can draw on the wisdom of Stoicism to cultivate resilience in the face of adversity.
Okay.
We can use the insights of Jungian psychology to understand and integrate those shadow parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
We can employ the tools of CBT to challenge those negative thought patterns and cultivate more positive ones.
Okay.
And we can embrace that existentialist call to create meaning through our choices and actions.
Wow. It's like we're weaving together all these different threads of wisdom to create a more beautiful and intricate tapestry.
And that's the beauty of this deep dive, isn't it? It's not just about learning about Eckhart Tolle's ideas.
Right.
It's about exploring this broader philosophical landscape and seeing how those ideas connect to other schools of thought.
It's like opening a door to a whole new world of possibilities.
Yes.
New ways of thinking and being.
And that, my friend, is the power of philosophical inquiry. It challenges us to question our assumptions, to expand our perspectives, and to embrace that glorious complexity of the human experience.
Well said. This deep dive has definitely been a mind-expanding journey.
It has.
As we wrap up, what's one key takeaway you hope our listeners will walk away with today?
If I had to pick just one, it would be this: embrace the paradox.
Okay.
Don't shy away from those seemingly contradictory ideas that we've explored today. Instead, hold them in your mind.
Yeah,
Let them dance together and see what new insights emerge.
I love that.
Remember, life isn't always about finding the right answer.
Right.
It's about embracing the questions, the mystery, the beautiful messiness of it all.
That's such a great reminder. Sometimes the most profound truths lie in those spaces where opposites meet.
Yes.
And sometimes the most important thing is to just stay curious, keep asking questions, and remain open to the possibility that we might be wrong.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, folks, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of Eckhart Tolle and his power of now, as seen through the lenses of all these fascinating philosophical perspectives. It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It really has. It's been a pleasure diving deep with you all today.
Until next time, fellow deep divers, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep exploring that vast and endlessly fascinating ocean of knowledge that surrounds us.